to prove all of that. So so that is you know, some of the key things to weight loss. What I also wanted to talk about was this is all great, but how do you put it together? What's a good thing to do? You know, 3 meals a day, 5 meals a day, 6 meals a day. Like, how do you make all of this work? And this is where I'll talk a little bit about things like intermittent fasting, which is something which is becoming quite popular, but at the same time, it's actually not that new. So so when you look at like structuring a diet, I actually believe, you know, more in, you know, spreading it out over the time that you're awake. But there's what intermittent fasting basically is kind of saying, okay, well, let's compact what we eat into 8 hours and have 16 hours of not eating, or let's eat, you know, higher calorie on 5 days of the week, but then 2 days of the week we'll have like really low calorie, like 500, 600 calories, or we might actually have a whole day of fasting, or sometimes people might have one meal that's really big and then like really eat quite scantily, and I think that's called warrior eating. So there's a lot of different ways of following that, and again, I think they are effective at bringing down, you know, a lot of those health markers, controlling blood sugar. However, they're not necessarily more effective than just, you know, basically following another style of diet. But what I do find really interesting is that the old adage that we had was have your starchy carbs in the morning, and obviously when we talk about that we mean your grains, you know, more of your root vegetables like your potato or your sweet potato, but your rice, your pastas, your oats and all that kind of stuff. Have that earlier in the day, and then in the evening eat light and have what you call your fibrous carbs, which is your vegetables, you know, your spinach, your broccoli, the things which don't really carry a large amount of carbs once you take out the fiber component. So if you look at that structure, and as I say, a lot of the years I never had a carbohydrate meal post-workout. It would always just be like basically like chicken and vegetables, or fish and vegetables. So essentially if I looked at that, then the main part of my day would have been, you know, eating within, you know, essentially that 8-hour period of carbohydrate, and whilst eating a meal at that time, it wasn't bringing in the insulin system, so it wasn't causing my body to release insulin. And that's like the whole point of what the intermittent fasting is to reduce that release of insulin. So in a way, I think that I was probably following some kind of some version of intermittent fasting. I'm actually a big believer in that. If you can you know, eat your main carbohydrates earlier in the day, number one, you're also putting them there so that they're there to be used for training. As I said, depending on where you're at with your comp prep, or whether you're trying to grow, or what sporting activity, then, you know, carbohydrate post-workout is important for that recovery. But if you're just doing it for health and fitness, then eating light afterwards and not having a heavy, you know, complex carbohydrate, and just sticking with those really, you know, low density foods after you've done your training at nighttime, then essentially that is putting you into a form of intermittent fasting. But I think it also takes away that problem of hunger, because imagine you're trying to put all of your food into just that short period of time, and then socially, you know, you go home from work or you go home from a workout, and imagine you can't eat. Like the practicality of that is not good. And I know that the studies that they've done is that the hunger doesn't go away. Like, you stay on that type of diet for 3 months, eating only in an 8-hour period, and apparently you don't get used to it. You don't get any less hungry. How do you socialize? How do you have a normal life when you're pretty much your last meal's at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you got to go till whatever? So yeah, sorry, Chris, that's really, really good that you're doing that. Try not to eat after 6 p.m. Or if you do, it would be, you know, something which essentially has really no calories to it at all. So to me, having something like a high protein with the, you know, some fibrous vegetables or something like that is allowing you to have that meal, but it's not bringing in that insulin system, which is going to cause that problem. So it is a modified form of intermittent fasting, which gets around the practical problem of, you know, what do you do to keep yourself occupied when you're absolutely starving and you feel like you need to do something, because there's a lot to be said for the social aspect of food. Now, we pretend, and like a lot of the studies that are done are on rats and a controlled situation where the person or the animal has no choice because they have to eat that food. But the reality is we're out there, and every day we're socializing, we're seeing advertisements for food, we're smelling food, we're just, it's a social part of our life. If it didn't matter how food looked like, it wouldn't matter what it was packaged in, people wouldn't bother plating stuff up and making it look good at a restaurant. So food is a very social thing. It's a very pleasurable thing. So you kind of can't ignore that part of it when you are looking at a diet. Like, you have to look at your own situation. Like, for me, texture is a huge thing. Like, I couldn't eat liquid food all day long, or I couldn't eat soft, soggy food all day long. I have to have some kind of crunch. I would have to have something that had a bit of chew to it, like something that, like, smoother texture. Like, that's a really, really important thing. And that's, to me, probably one of the big drawbacks that I see with a lot of diets where it's such prescriptive food and it's very, very similar, is that you don't have a lot of flexibility to change it up. So you just have to be mindful of that as to how that sits with you when you're creating that kind of, that type of lifestyle. Some people can do it and other people really struggle with that. And that's where they fall off. And that's where, they decide to go and run and get some other kind of cheat food or something that's a little bit more exciting. And then your taste buds kind of get stuck on all of that. So don't underestimate those kind of factors. But at the same time, some of the other factors which are really important are things like support groups and, like, getting that support, like, where you are feeling a little bit like, oh man, I want to go have this thing today, like how you actually deal with that. So don't underestimate the need. And that's probably why things like Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers and any of those kind of groups got popularity, is because they do take into account the fact that you do need support. Like, you need maybe someone to kind of like, yep, you can do it. Don't break today. Because I know one of the big things with bodybuilding is, because you're training really hard, your blood sugar gets low, you get kind of emotional, you're not changing quick enough. And this is the same for any kind of diet. You're not seeing the results as quick as what you want to see them, and you get a little bit kind of like, it's not making a difference. And if you do make a bit of a slip up and break your diet, then you almost feel like, I might as well just keep on going, and then it kind of turns into a binge, which is not a good situation to be in, because it reverses all of that good work that you've done. Because it's easy to, like, you can only, like, reduce your calories per day by a certain amount. Either, like, even if you're eating zero food, it's like, say you need 1,500 calories per day. Even if you're eating zero, that's only negative 1,500 calories, and there's 9,000 calories in 1 kilo of body fat. So you would have to literally, not eat for a week kind of thing to strip off that kilo of pure body fat. Now, when you're overeating and you go on a bit of a binge, it's very easy to actually consume a very, very high amount of calories. So you could potentially put on 250 grams of body fat from a big binge, and literally that's going to take you, a lot longer than that one day to burn that back off. So just do keep that in mind. When it comes to dieting, just another kind of couple of tips. As I said, I've always measured and weighed my food because I believe that you've got to have some kind of control. As I said, there are diets where, you don't have to measure, but as I said, you can pretty much eat vegetables till the cows come home, as long as they're fibrous vegetables, and it's almost impossible to overeat those. And likewise, if it's lean meats and vegetables, it's very, very hard to overeat those. It's very easy to eat those those refined carbohydrates. But one thing that I don't do is use the look on the treadmill or something like that and look at the calories that I've burnt, because to me, I don't know, I don't trust that. I would rather look at what is actually happening in my body, because I always felt like that because it's like basically a one size fits all, like, hey, that's your body weight, that's how long you did it, therefore you burn this many calories. I think you tend to overestimate what you've actually done, and also the fact that your body gets more efficient. So if you're not very fit, you're actually going to burn more calories. Someone who's gotten very fit, you're not going to burn as many calories, because your body kind of knows how to make things more efficient and more effective, so that you're preserving everything. So that's something to keep in mind. Don't pay too much attention to what the little smartwatch or the treadmill's telling you that you've burned, but pay a lot of attention to the weight of what you're eating, and get to know what's in your food and read your labels and all that kind of stuff. Awesome, Sylvia. I was actually thinking of you when I was thinking about this topic, Sylvia, because I really want you to make a huge success of this. But just coming back to your own planning, things to look at are your own lifestyle. As I said, looking at something like that modified intermittent fasting, where you're putting most of your calories into the earlier part of the day, assuming that you don't have a night shift job or anything like that. Splitting things up evenly. again, that's a personal choice. I do tend to like to have my first meal probably a fair bit larger than some of my other meals, and obviously my night meal is a lot lighter in calories. Some people can't stomach first meal of the day, and I will make a comment about that when it comes to intermittent fasting, the ones where you're eating between the earlier hours of the day, so even so late 10 till 6 or 7 till 3 or something like that, is more effective than going from say 3 p.m. up until midnight. So eating earlier in the day is definitely a more effective way to go. Research has definitely shown that if you give people the same amount of calories, but they eat it as regular meals or they eat it as a sporadic kind of a meal thing, you actually have better blood sugar glucose control on the regular meal eating, even if you're eating the same type of food and calories. So don't underestimate having an actual schedule that you eat to. Don't be kind of random and sporadic. Try to get yourself a system where you have, your 5 whatever meals set out. I do recommend 5 meals a day, 6 potentially if you are doing 2 training sessions a day, would definitely be a lot better. Obviously, some of the bigger guys need to do 7, but for most of us people who are over 35 and just being fit and healthy, 5 meals is a really great place to start. Space them out relatively evenly and try to, keep some of these things in mind in terms of eating lighter at night. If you are on a lifestyle type of diet where you are eating your carbohydrates, make sure you're having them earlier in the day. If you're on a low carb diet, then you're essentially it shouldn't matter because you're on that low carb kind of diet anyhow. And also just keep in mind that, yes, you want something you can stick to because it's about longevity. It's about lifestyle. It's about it becoming your lifestyle. And at the bottom of all of this, sugar is bad. There is no two ways around that. It doesn't mean to say you obviously can't have any because, let's face it, we're all probably somewhat addicted to our sugar. But do, keep that in mind that it shouldn't be an everyday thing. Obviously, there is always, I'm a big lover of breakfast cereal. There's a lot of sugars hidden in a lot of different kind of things, a lot of drink mixes. So do keep that in mind when you're looking out for things. But whatever you choose, like I say, it has to suit you, and you do have to track your progress and, be patient. And if something doesn't work, then go back and try something different. But I think, the bottom line is, if you've got a lot of weight to lose, looking at low carb type of diets, if you're looking at what I call performance weight loss, moderate carbohydrate, high protein, and be very mindful of your timing of when you're eating things because you want to be fueling that workout and making sure that you've got enough to do what you need to do to train as hard as possible.